back to Swap Monkey Reacts. I am your host, Jake, and I welcome you to this interesting turn of events that's been going on. Going through human history, reacting to the disturbing parts, the most darkest part of humanity. I've been watching this video. This is part 2 of the top 10 dark early humans practices. The next parts that are coming up are going to probably be a little bit disturbing, so viewers' discretion is advised if you don't want to hear some cringy stuff. But if you are here and you're watching this and you made it this far, thank you for being here. If you like what you see, leave a thumbs up. Give me subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those little fancy things that make the algorithm nice and crispy. And let's get into the video.
We live in a time now where if you get hurt or sick, you can walk down to the doctor and then they'll patch you up as good as new. Well, it depends on how much you take care of your body. If you get a stomach ache and then the doctor gives you something to feel better, but then you go home and keep eating Doritos, your body isn't really going to heal, but you'll still be better off than early humans were. Back then, if you sprained your ankle, they would leave you on a rock to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. There would have been no comeback story. It was one and done. In fact, the life expectancy for early humans was somewhere in their late 30s. That means you had to get your life together fast. I might have already been an elder in my tribe or almost dead by the time I reached this stage of my life. I would probably be walking with a limp and too weak to fight. It wouldn't be long before I'd be sentenced to death by being left behind like the third dude on the sidewalk. And there would be good reason for this. If it wasn't an injury that would get you, it would be some sort of insect or infection. There was a little chance that you would be able to avoid the many things in the prehistoric world that would be trying to kill you at all times.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the Venus of Willendorf. If you've never heard of it before, the Venus of Willendorf is a small figurine that is said to have been made around 30,000 years ago, and it was one of the first cultural items that was found from the
They also think that this statue is also the goddess of fertility in some kind of culture. I forget which culture it is, but I recognize the statue. Not for the things that you're thinking of. Get your mind out of the gutter. But I recognize this statue from world history. Just gonna say that.
Paleolithic era. This specific figurine is similar to others that have been found from the same era as well, but this specific one was found during an excavation in 1908. These figurines are depictions of a nude female body, but there are most definitely some exaggerations. Some researchers believe that these figurines may have been a representation of a mother goddess and would be used as a symbolic fertility totem, but some people believe that these figurines were more of a form of erotic art. There is, however, one more theory about these figurines. It is believed by some that they were created by female artists who were looking down on their bodies. This theory says that this would be the reason there wouldn't be a face included on the figurine, as there were no mirrors for them to clearly see their own reflection.
Coming in at number 8, we have crossover episode. Early humans were very territorial creatures, but they weren't dumb. Well, they weren't dumb compared to the creatures that were around back then. If we were to introduce them to today's society, they wouldn't be giving a lecture on the simple ways of hunting and gathering. What I mean by they weren't dumb is that they understood that they were much weaker than a lot of the other creatures that were around them, and they would need to work together if they wanted to take them down for food. This meant that they would often encounter other humans while they would be walking around and hunting, and instead of instantly getting into a fight over the hunting territory, they would join forces to wage war on larger edible mammals. Their communications would have been very basic. They probably were mainly using body language and a very simple system of grunts to get their point across, which isn't hard to believe. If you've ever been traveling, then you know you can find a way to talk to people without any sort of common tongue. Now this would be terrible for all the animals in the area. You would now have a team up of prehistoric Avengers.
In our number 7 spot today, we have extracurriculars. There are illicit substances that have been made by humans, but there are also some that are naturally occurring from nature and our earth. In today's world, drugs are a pretty controversial topic, regardless of the source that they come from, but looking back at our early human ancestors, these things were certainly not as complicated as they are now. There's evidence that has shown researchers that early humans were inhaling drugs before drugs was even a word.
putting more light on this, there is civilizations throughout history that used some kind of chemical plant or something for stimulant. I know the Vikings used mushrooms to go into a certain rage mode, like the berserker that you would see on TV. Usually they would eat mushrooms to engage into that. Others, like in China, would have like certain drug, I forget which one it is, kind of like spice or something, that they would consume in these tents and then procreate with each other and do some other really fucked up things. But human history has always had something to do with drugs or alcohol or something that is inebriating each other somehow. Humans are known for it. It's not a most recent thing right now.
There is evidence that they would inhale hallucinogenic smoke through bowls and tubes that they created themselves, which would be used to send them into spiritual trances. Of course, this practice has become more taboo in our modern society, but there certainly is something to be said for how far back these practices date. I have a lot of questions as to how the early humans discovered these things in the first place, but I guess most of their time was spent discovering new things, which is honestly pretty cool. I also want to know how the first human who ever tripped out reacted. There is also apparently evidence that shows that the early humans also created their own alcohol. There's a site in Cyprus that dates back 11,000 years ago that researchers believe was used as a ceremonial site and also as a kind of prehistoric brewery.
Coming in at number 6, we have more hunting patterns. We talked about in part 1 of this list how some early humans would hunt. They would use their marathon running ability to literally run animals to exhaustion, having a beast sprint until it couldn't run any further and then drop down dead. But that wasn't the only way they were able to bring death to all the animals and creatures around them. A very popular form of hunting was just being the sneakiest dude in town, hiding in the bushes for hours until some unsuspecting animal got too close. You would then jump out and drive your spear through its head and bring it to the ground. This hunting technique could have been performed by small groups of hunters, but if you wanted to bring down something bigger, well then it was going to take a tactic that might have been a little more brutal. It was thought that early humans would chase things down like woolly mammoths and push them to the edge of a cliff. A group of them would then pressure the animal until it got scared and tumbled to its death. You could then go to where the creature fell down and it would be bon appetit.
We have the waiting game. I know we've talked about hunting a few times, but this is just another one of those sneaky guy hunting methods that used to be used thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, hunting larger animals and prey has become significantly easier as we have high-powered machines that allow us to take out animals that are much, much larger than us. But of course, this wasn't always the case. You know the phrase, work smarter, not harder? Well, early humans had that down as they would hide away, waiting for some form of a large predator to come and take down a prey that would be too big for humans to conquer. After this, they would wait for the large predator to leave, which is when they would go and scavenge the remains of the animal for food. This certainly wasn't the most common hunting tactic, as humans had different taste preferences than, let's say, a lion. Like, a lion doesn't really care what age their prey is, but it has apparently been shown that early humans preferred their meat to have been in their prime of adulthood before becoming their meal. But hey, beggars can't be choosers.
Coming in at number 4, we have cancer was still a problem. We like to think that one of the biggest killers of modern man is something that is new, and it's been brought on by our overindulgence in chemicals and from having extremely poor diets. Did you know that eating fried food leaves your body more inflamed than smoking a cigarette? That's pretty wild. But back to my point. Even though some of our modern tendencies have exacerbated how much cancer we are seeing develop in people, that doesn't mean that the disease is brand new. An archaeological dig in Kenya showed that early humans had lumps in their bodies that were most likely cancer tumors. There would have been no way to fight this back then, and it would have probably led to death in every case.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the tattooed mummy. If mummies are something you're into, that's a little weird, but you may have also heard of Otzi the Iceman. Otzi was found in the Alps and is the earliest natural human mummy ever found in Europe, which is actually kind of cool. I mean, maybe not for Otzi, but it's an interesting fact for sure. Anyways, there was of course a lot of research done on him after his discovery, and one thing that was very notable was the fact that he had a total of 61 tattoos on his body. That is probably not anything crazy for us today, but all things considered, this was a lot of tattoos for someone during the time that he lived in. Most of the tattoos were difficult to see at first, which seems pretty fair considering the fact that he lived thousands and thousands of years ago and the fact that his body is now mummified. While the idea of him having tattoos is certainly very interesting, researchers believe that the tattoos were actually done as an attempt at pain relief, sort of like a prehistoric version of acupuncture that used fireplace ash. It's honestly kind of sad to think of him as being in pain so often that he needed 61 different tattoos, all of which were gone over multiple times on different occasions.
Coming in at number 2, we have climate change forced innovation. Seeing the beast of climate change that is coming over the horizon makes you wonder if we're going to be able to beat it and strive to be alive another day. Are we going to be able to come up with a way to best the biggest threat that we have seen in recent years? I think we will. Honestly, I think I'm going to change so little about my lifestyle that I won't even notice that there was a change when the world is just fixed. That's what happens with most of my problems. And if history is right, then that's exactly how things should play out. It would seem that climate change has been something that our ancestors have faced before, and every time they've come up with a new and innovative way to combat these changes and survive. So we just gotta pull it off one more time and we're good, baby.
And in our number 1 spot today, we have these prehistoric medical practices. There's never been a great time in history to be in need of medical attention, but from my limited medical knowledge and all the medical advancements we have made, I feel like now is probably a better time than the rest of history. This, however, has of course not stopped people from seeking out medical attention because, of course, you have to at least try. Well, as it turns out, there's actually some pretty interesting evidence suggesting the ways that some early humans gave themselves stitches, as well as some evidence on some form of prehistoric brain surgery, if you can believe that. Trepanation is a procedure that involves forming holes in the human skull. This is definitely a thing that was quite common among early humans, but it is highly debated why. Some researchers believe that it was a spiritual practice, but some swear that it was a form of brain surgery. In terms of stitches that were used by early humans, this is a fact that really grosses me out, and it unfortunately involves ants. People would hold an ant above their open wound and wait for the ant to bite the wound with its pincers. After the ant grabbed on, they would then remove the head of the ant so that the pincers would stay in place like a stitch. Honestly, after reading this, I really hope that this was one of the times that the internet was lying to me, and if it's not, I feel incredibly grateful that today's version of stitches doesn't involve bugs.
Coming in at number 10, we have they might have mated with gorillas. Now on the
That's disturbing for the next video. This is gonna be part 3 coming up next week. Thank you guys for sticking around. This is Swamp Monkey Reacts. I am Jake. I'm the host. I will be the host forever. But leave me down comments on this video. Let me know if you like this content, if you like the darker side of stuff, like me reacting to it, like seeing my face react to it, like me bringing in some of my unsolicited information about certain things that I might know but these people don't. I want to thank again Most Amazing Top 10 for putting these videos up. I know this video is probably pretty new, 2 weeks ago, but stay tuned for the next one coming out next week. This could be part 3.